Good morning, everyone. It's really a special day for our entire school community, and I just want to thank the Independent Club of Colonia for hosting this special event, and it really is going to be a special day. So, when I was fortunate enough to become the principal of Colonia Middle School, and by the way, I am Mr. Short, the principal of Colonia Middle School. I had just recently seen an interview that Glenn Morgan did with the mayor, and it was amazing. It really told the history not only of the Independent Club of Colonia, but this whole neighborhood, local history, with a focus on Black history. And obviously we know this month is Black History Month, and it's very fitting that we're hosting this event, during the month of February. But during the process of seeing that interview, I knew that I wanted to make one of the initiatives, to learn all about the history of the Independent Club of Colonia and why it's so important. So who was my student timer? How long did it take us to walk door to door from Colonia Middle School here?
2 minutes and 33 seconds.
2 minutes and 33 seconds. So we have a wonderful delegation of students that I'll talk about momentarily. But it's literally right across the street from our school. And when I took over, I kind of did some, just some informal surveying of our students, our staff. What do you know about the Independent Club of Colonia? I've been familiar with them for years from working in the district. And, a lot of student staff didn't even know it was here. So I talked over the summer, our director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Mr. Ali, we had a conversation. We just started talking about, some of my goals for the building. And I said, I really wanted to develop, a relationship with the Independent Club of Colonia and make sure, that there's an understanding of why it was established, why it's important, and the work that it still does to this day. So today is a big part of fulfilling that goal. We have a delegation of students. We have some dignitaries I'll be announcing shortly that are here with us. But this is all being filmed. We're fortunate to have TV 35 here, but we also have our own internal video production that's going on with Mr. Bernstein from our tech department. Is Mr. Bernstein incredible? Give him a round of applause. Isn't he incredible? So he's doing his own filming. We're going to pull from TV 35's production. We're going to pull from the interview from last year Glenn Morgan did with the mayor. And I've known Glenn Morgan for many years. When I was vice principal of Colonia High School, I had his daughter. And I know Glenn Morgan as a parent and a tremendous supporter of our schools, a tremendous supporter of our athletic programs. And he really has been my partner in planning today's event. So this is really fulfilling that promise. And then once this video production is completed, next week we are going to have our entire school community at Colonia Middle School view this together during Block 3. And by the time this is complete, I want every student, every staff member, every part of our school community not only to know where the Independent Club of Colonia is, why it was so important that it was established, its history, and the important work that they continue to do today. So we have with us in our student delegation, we have members both of our school equity team as well as our National Junior Honor Society. So I'm going to ask our three student speakers, Temi, Joey, and Valentina, if you can come on up. Round of applause. Now, I'm not calling them up here on the spot. They know they're going to be talking a little bit. So they're each going to be talking about a specific area of what we're doing at Colonia Middle School. So Temi's going to talk a little bit about being part of our school equity team and what has gone on this year.
So as he said, my name is Temi. And so at Colonia Middle School, we have something called a DEI committee. And DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So at the DEI committee, we discuss different ways to help Black students feel more represented in the school environment. and give them a chance to share their own heritage and culture with the rest of the school if they choose. And one of the things about DEI, when we went to South River, we talked at the Days of Dialogue. One of the most important things I think we talked about was how we're not like other students, so we don't know how they feel or their experiences, so we can't judge, and so we have to be tolerant of all people's differences.
All right, next up, Valentina is going to talk a little bit about our PBIS program at Colonia Middle School and really what it's all about, how we treat each other, respect for one another. So Valentina, if you want to come on up.
PBIS is a great program that we have at our school. It encourages students to always be on their best behavior. Teachers can reward students that do good deeds, respect other students, help out the teachers, and the students can build up points to buy a reward for their good behavior.
All right, and next up, Joey's going to be talking a little bit about our National Junior Honor Society, our fundraising effort to support this wonderful exhibit you see around you, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about that.
So first, I would just like to say thank you for having us here today. This is a great club and a great opportunity for all of us. So our National Junior Honor Society has been fundraising for the past couple weeks. We have held snack sales. We have held school spirit weeks where we raise money to help fund this great club. And from the behalf of me and the students at Colonia Middle, I just would like to say thank you for everyone here for making this possible today. Our goal is to help spread awareness to this not only in Colonia but in Woodbridge Township going forward. So thank you guys for having this today, and have a great day.
So in line with what Joey just gave an overview of, I'd like to invite Marty Hall and Mr. Morgan up just for a quick moment. So I'd like to present these gentlemen. This is a check for $549 made out to the Independent Club of Colonia, completely raised on the efforts of our students. And this money will go towards the establishment of this exhibit, as well as, the continuing of our students benefiting from it. And momentarily, we're going to hear from the entire leadership team of the Independent Club, and they're really going to talk a little bit about, what this is all about, and then also lead into the opportunity for our students to enjoy this exhibit that we see here today. But first up, we have some dignitaries here who we know have very, very busy schedules, and they made it a priority to be here to celebrate this event. So at this time, I'd like to invite up our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Massimino. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me. I did get excited when we first came in and I heard the timekeeper. I thought you were keeping time how long Mr. Short had to talk. So I got excited when you said 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and then I realized that's just how long it took you to walk here, and that I was not going to have only 2 minutes and 33 seconds to listen to Mr. Short. So such is life, right? I just want to thank everybody for welcoming us. Mr. Morgan and Mr. Hall are friends of the school district. They're friends of our community. And that's what we're talking about here today. We're talking about the idea of making our community stronger. As a former history teacher, I can't tell you the importance of understanding the history of how things evolve and where we come from, because that is how we look at things in terms of measuring progress. And I tell everybody the work is never done. Every day we're trying to do something better. That really only happens if you have a community that is willing to offer support and be a partner. And when you look at the Independent Club and you talk to gentlemen like Mr. Morgan and Mr. Hall, and we get to talk outside of the independent clubs' workings. And that happens because they are involved in multiple things, right? I think the last time I saw Mr. Hall, we were doing something at Applebee's. And Mr. Morgan, we caught up at a basketball game. And why? Because they care about the community as a whole. The support is everywhere. You know, the old saying, it takes a village, and I believe it does. So the opportunity for us to have so many different segments of the community with our township and, you know, our county superintendent and township government, the members of the independent club, the students, the staff, the administration, I can go on, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but that's the idea, right? We want every stakeholder group, we want all members of the community to be a part of this, because that is truly how we will get better, and that's what we want to see, right? We want to create something better tomorrow than we had today, and I think with everybody here, that'll happen. So thank you for your support, thank you for your energy, thank you for being such wonderful partners, that this doesn't happen in a vacuum, this happens because there are ladies and gentlemen such as yourselves that make it possible, so thank you, and I look forward to just continue to build on this wonderful collaboration, so thank you.
All right, next up, I'd like to call up the mayor of Woodbridge Township, Mr. John McCormick.
Thank you very much, Principal Short. So I don't think the township has ever had as much going on in Black History Month as we have in 2023. Every year for the past several years, it's gotten more and more, and it culminated this year with, I think, the best effort that we've ever had. And that's because I think that's directly because of the three pioneers we have in this room who have advanced the cause of Black history throughout Woodbridge Township, starting with our councilman, the very first elected Black person in Woodbridge Township government history. He's been a councilman since he was appointed, I believe, in 2009 or 10, and ran in 11 the first time. He's been successful 2 more times since then. With any luck, he'll be successful this November also. He's the county superintendent of schools, is Dr. Massiminos. And by the way, when did Dr. Massiminos suddenly become so funny? I missed that. I don't know when that happened, but that was actually pretty clever. But Kyle Anderson has been a good friend for a long time. When we wanted to diversify the council back after Pat Osborne announced her retirement, we were looking for somebody from the minority community. And Kyle stood out because of his involvement with the Island Giants, his involvement with baseball leagues. His kids were active in all sports and cheerleading, you name it. And he was just a very solid citizen, a solid person. He came to the council as, again, the very first appointed and then elected Black person. And he's been a fierce advocate for minority representation. And he was the first one. And since then, we've had people from the Asian Indian community, people from the Hispanic community. We're talking now to a Muslim person who wants to get on one of our boards. We have just such great diversity in town. And Kyle led that. So thank you, Kyle, for being here. We also have a guy I've known for a long, long time through the Independent Club of Colonia, and he's done, again, more and more each year. This building didn't always look this good. It frankly didn't look good at all. Many years ago, Phil really started a whole effort. We had the Tooling Around Town effort out here. We had all kinds of involvement from different groups who helped clean up and paint and scrape and do everything. And he's been an amazing leader of the community. And he is, this Independent Club is the sponsor of our annual Black History Month celebration. That every year has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where this year we have to move it to the Acacia Center, which holds almost 400 people. We just outgrew the Evergreen Center. We just couldn't have it there anymore because we just couldn't fit. So Phil Hall has been a dynamic and aggressive leader for this organization, and he's one of the 3 pioneers I'm referring to. So I want to thank Phil Hall for your leadership of this club and your leadership. You've become not just a leader of this entity here, but a leader of the entire Woodbridge Township community. So thanks. And then there's Glenn Morgan, who's been a member of the Woodbridge community for years. He grew up right behind us here. I remember the interview you talked about, Mr. Short, Principal Short, where Glenn was going over who lived in what house and what was going on and how people interacted and how this became a microcosm of diversity back in the 70s and 80s. This was what Woodbridge Township later became everywhere. This was it first. Glenn Morgan is the head of our Human Rights Commission. When we decided to revitalize that entity after it's been dormant for about 30 years, we talked to Glenn and he agreed to chair it, and then he informed me that His mother was the last chairperson of this committee, and he's got so many stories about her and everything she did to advance the cause of minority representation and minority involvement. The things she used to do for the community here are just staggering. When you listen to, you all should watch that interview when Glenn talks about his mom and everything she did and everything she meant for the community. And he is picking up her legacy where it left off, and he is following that and advancing that, and he's been terrific. I'm so glad he agreed to become the chairman of the Human Rights Commission. He's been absolutely phenomenal in that role. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Morgan. We also have Councilwoman Debbie Meehan is with us. She's been a council person for 10 years now, representing the entire town of Colonia. Let's hear it for Debbie. And I want to also mention Kendall Ali. Only met him about, almost 2 years ago when you came to the school district. I'm so impressed by this young man. I actually called him Dr. Ali at the Martin Luther King Essay Contest ceremony. He said, not quite a doctor yet. But the fact that the board had the good sense to hire somebody like him shows their commitment to the diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. And I think that was such a terrific move. He's a pleasure to work with. He's a pleasure to listen to. And when he talks about the issues, and they've been such help for me as the mayor. I've been mayor for a while, and I've got these kind of resources that I can lean on between Kyle and Phil and Glenn and now the new guy on the block, Kendall Ali. It's so good to have people like that help me figure out what to do leading this great town of Woodbridge. So thank you all. Thank you, Principal Short, for doing this. I know you're right across the street. I think you guys would have done this if you were 10 miles away. That's how impressed I am with Colonia Middle School and Mr. Short. So thank you all for the time.
At this time, I would like to invite up Councilman Anderson, who also is the County Executive Superintendent of Schools of Middlesex County. He is also, I just recently learned, an honorary member of the Independent Club of Colonia, and his sons went to Colonia Middle School, and I know that because when I was the principal of another middle school and we'd play them in sports, I wish they were at our school. That's how good they were. Come up to the microphone, please. Thank you, sir.
I know we have a lot of speakers here today, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to thank you all for being here. I know it was asked earlier when we were warming up the group about what makes this group, this community special. When you think of Black history, you think of a lot of things, and a lot of things are on the wall, and a lot of it is about the struggle, a struggle that Black Americans went through. However, this club is very unique. Not a lot of townships have a club that's dedicated to a group of people that needed to have a place like this. You needed a place like this. You needed to be able to come together, because when you were being told that you were, it was a tough time back when this club was first started in 1949, right? So it was a tough time for Black Americans back then. There was a lot of segregation. We were just coming out of Jim Crow, which you see a lot of the pictures around here during that time. Jim Crow was this big in laws and things you couldn't do. You couldn't walk on the same street, on the same side of the street as a white American. You couldn't touch them physically. And so when, everyone says when we're slaves free, they were freed in 1865. But then you put all these laws in place. So if I said, hey, you guys, you want to come over, but you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you'd say, well, is that freedom? And so the Independent Club of Colonia, I always love the first name of this club, independent, right? We want to be independent people. We want to be independent and free thinkers. But the support that our school and our administration and Mayor McCormick brought up a point about Mr. Ali. We're one of the few townships and municipalities and school districts that have a person that is a director of diversity and equity and inclusion in their school district. So we have Mr. Ali, I believe your background is in mathematics, right? But Mr. Ali was chosen by Dr. Massimino, and he would tell me amazing things about Mr. Ali. Before he made this position, when the state mandated that every school district make strides in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It had to be included in your curriculum. It had to be included in, and this is the one word that I always ask all the kids to explain the difference between equality and equity, right? So we say equity, and do we really know what the difference is between equality and equity? And I try to explain it very simply. Imagine you're running a race, right? And somebody lets you in. Somebody else starts the race, and they run halfway around, and then they tell you, hey, you can enter the race too, but catch up to me. You have to start at the finish line. They're halfway around the race. And they say, catch up. That's equality. Equality is we let you in the race. Equity is we start at the same starting point. Right? That's the difference. And that's why you see back when my parents were coming up, it was more about equality because they just wanted to be in the race. And now it's about equity because we're saying, hey, I think I would succeed in life better if I had some of the same things and same advantages that other people had. So that's where we talk about equity. But the state mandated that we have an area that we dedicate that we dedicate our curriculum, that we make strides in our educational efforts with regard to equity. So I applaud our school district for hiring Mr. Ali because we're one of the few districts that said we're going to have a director. We're going to designate one person to help us lead the way in equity. Piscataway is another district, Edison, but a lot of other districts have just said, we're doing things with equity, but we're not necessarily hiring someone and saying, listen, we want you to focus on this. And last year at the skating rink was unbelievable. Were all you guys there, or a lot of you guys there at the skating rink when we had that day of equity? It was amazing. It was amazing to see all of the works of the students in regard to equity. And then lastly, I'd just like to talk about the Independent Club of Colonia. Glenn Morgan, Phil Hall, they are very good friends of mine. When I first became a councilman, they invited me here, and I didn't know about the Independent Club of Colonia because I grew up in Island. And we didn't know, I just knew kids in this neighborhood that I grew up with. And they had one of the first Black History Month events that they had that in the building that I recall, and they invited me here because they said, hey, listen, you made history, we want you to come here. And as a result, a lot of good friendships, a lot of great conversations, because as you all know, we went through George Floyd, we went through so many different things, and this is where we were being challenged as a community again. We were being challenged and find out, are we truly trying to change as a community? Are we truly trying to progress? And it's through those conversations that the mayor was willing to have with us, that Dr. Massimino was willing to have, and asking questions. And it's fair. My kids went to school like you guys at Colonia Middle, and it's fair for you guys to ask your friends questions. And there's a way to have that conversation, and we call those courageous conversations. And you have to have those courageous conversations because sometimes people say, it makes us feel guilty, to know that my race maybe had an advantage. No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't make you feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty because your ancestors may have benefited from times. We know historically in the world, we all went through this. But it's now that we're doing things like this, where we're coming across the street and we're embracing our neighbors and we're being good neighbors to one another. That's how we change the community. That's how we change our, even if you were taught inappropriate things, if you were taught things that really didn't show unity, you can unteach yourself that through your education and through your friendships with everybody. I'm looking in the room, and we have all people of all different backgrounds. That's what the world is. And now we all live amongst each other, and that's what makes a place like Independent Club a historic place. We should get one of those historic signs in front of that say this. That's the next thing we need to work on. It's a historic place because it was a historic meeting place during a very pivotal time in our country. So I just want to thank the Independence Club. I want to thank Mr. Short for the invitation. And I want to thank Dr. Massimino, Mr. Ali, and the mayor. I know he had to leave. I want to thank them all. But I want to especially thank you guys. Thank you guys. Talk about what you learned today, and I'm so glad that the rest of the students are going to benefit from this from a video. Thank you all. Enjoy your day, and look forward to next year. All right.
At this time, I would like to invite up our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Woodbridge Township School District, Mr. Kendall Ali.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to thank you all for coming here and for this amazing event. The partnership with the Independent Club of Colonia has been an amazing one, and we're only right at the beginning. I remember when I was first introduced to Glenn Morgan, and we had a meeting here, myself, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction attended, Mr. Paul Pastorino, and we had a very productive conversation about how can we partner to move things forward for our students and for the township. What are the ways that we can collaborate to provide the best possible experience for our students? What are the questions that we need to ask to make sure that we're benefiting them in the ways that they need to be benefited? And I think that productive dialogue led us to a place where we've been able to kind of work together on many different initiatives to benefit our entire student body and the community as a whole. It was mentioned that my background is in mathematics, which it is. But something that I want to point out is I always viewed mathematics as a tool to reveal and address inequity. As a classroom teacher, it was about how can we learn about the different patterns and associations between different variables and how that can affect student outcomes. How can elements of your identity be tied to things like earning power? How can you use math as a tool to make the world a better place and not just words on a page? So that's a challenge that I always accepted because I always viewed math as a tool to change the world. I was definitely able to benefit and was definitely humbled when I was asked to take the position of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion because it provided an opportunity to grow the scale of impact beyond just curriculum or beyond just mathematics. And I think the foresight of our superintendent, the foresight of the Board of Education to prioritize that as a need really speaks to the commitment that the township, the board, and our executive leadership has to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think the most important thing for me is the audience that's in front of me right now, which is the students. It is so humbling, exciting, and energizing. Like, I feel it in my body right now. The commitment that you have demonstrated to understand the mission of this club, to support the mission of this club, to really internalize the need to affect change in your local community and to leverage the partnerships in the community to do so. So from the leadership of Mr. Short to the teachers, the staff, nothing happens without our teachers. Like, they're the ones that execute the vision. And again, nothing happens without the work of our students. You're the ones that put in the work. So I want to thank our staff, our students, our leadership, but most of all, I want to thank you, the students. Please give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you, sir. A couple other just acknowledgments. We have with us here Mrs. Glusky representing our National Junior Honor Society, our advisor. Thank you for being here and supporting this. We have Ms. Davidson, who has overseen our school equity team and done a wonderful job working with our students and staff. I appreciate your efforts. And before I turn it over to the leadership team of the Independent Club of Colonia, I have to give special recognition to Ms. Dupree. I saw firsthand when I visited the other day how much you have put into this exhibit, and she expressed to me that she attended Colonia High School, And there was one teacher in particular that really had a significant impact on her life. And she said, I'd love to just get a picture of him. So I was able to work with Mr. Pace at Colonia High School. We were able to secure that yearbook for you. And that is a gift from Colonia High School that is on loan to the Independent Club of Colonia as long as you need it. And I know you'll take great care of it. Absolutely. And at this time, I would like to invite up the leadership team of the Independent Club of Colonia. Gentlemen, who would like to speak first? Mr. Glenn Morgan. Round of applause. Appreciate
that. It's an emotional day too, and I just want to try to keep it real short. Knowledge is the key, and that's what we're here to do. It's to share this knowledge with you, and I just appreciate the fact that you're even here, and let the program begin.
Now, I also know Mr. Hall as a parent. I had his wonderful daughter at Colonia High School, very talented young lady, and was always someone who was a tremendous supporter of our schools, going back to my days as vice principal at Colonia High School. Mr. Hall, come on up, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Principal Short. I'm totally amazed, but you can certainly see the direction that Woodbridge Township is going in when you have this student body here and how well each and every one of you spoke. I mean, it was just amazing, so thank you for that. And it starts with the top, and that would be our Honorable Mayor Johnny McCormick, and to have Dr. Massimino here. Dr. Massimino, since he's taken over as the superintendent of Woodbridge Schools, doesn't miss an event. And anything we give, whether anybody around the township gives, if he can be a part of it, he'll be there. So it's a pleasure to have you, and thank you very much. I'd like to just give you a little history on the Independent Club of Colonia, and I'm going to read this because it's kind of a lot, but I'll do it quickly. The Independent Club of Colonia, you've probably passed by this building in your travels and wondered, who exactly is the Independent Club of Colonia, and what do they do? Well, I'm glad you asked. So let's start from the beginning. The name Independent Club of Colonia is not a political reference or political posture. We are a non-political, non-partisan organization. In the mid to 1940s, a local group of African Americans who resided in the Colonia section of Woodbridge Township decided to establish a nonprofit organization within the community. The purpose of the club, as stated in Article 2, section of the Constitution, which states, "We of the Independent Club of Colonia, Inc., form this club for the purpose of promoting civic betterment of the members thereof and to promote civic and recreational activities which will benefit the physical and moral welfare of the members and of the community." Meetings of the club were held at homes originally. However, the membership continued to grow, and they needed a larger place to host the events. And it was challenging at the time because of the racial inequalities that took place. So we needed a space of our own. So the executive committee decided that in order to further the mission of the Independent Club of Colonia, it would need to secure a building of its own. A building that would be used for meetings as well as educational and social gatherings. It would serve as a safe haven for African Americans whereby no community member would be excluded because of their race. In 1949, the Independent Club of Colonia was officially incorporated. In 1953, the building that you see today that we're in was erected on the grounds of 149 Delaware Avenue, a corner of West Maple Street in Colonia, directly across from the middle school. Now, the construction of the building was not completed by a well-known construction company, but rather by its members. They were a group of black men and women who considered it a labor of love. And in 1949, the charter members signed the original Constitution, establishing an organization in the community. The Independent Club of Colonia, Inc. is fondly referred to as the clubhouse. A lot of people go by and say, oh, the Independent Club of Colonia. Those that have been here from the beginning just refer to it as the clubhouse. It's an historical landmark and is said to be one of the oldest Woodbridge Township organizations still in existence. Since 1949, years later, the clubhouse is still committed to the mission and ideals of the founding fathers. The legacy has been carried on by the children and grandchildren of the original members, who are just as dedicated and committed to helping and promote the shape of a unique, diverse community that strives for excellence. The Independent Club of Colonia, Inc. is proud to celebrate over 70 years of serving our community. The Independent Club of Colonia, Inc. is a Black historical organization within the Township of Woodbridge. And we wouldn't be here without the current administration. Actually, the building lied dormant for almost 20 years. In 1999, we resurrected it, and we started the organization back, and since then it's grew. But without the current administration, the Honorable John E. McCormick, his administration, and people such as Principal Short and Dr. Massimino, along with Kyle Anderson, the superintendent of Middlesex County Schools, and Vito Semaluca, Carol Ehrlich, John Haggerty, all of them have helped and assisted us, including the council people who get involved in everything we do. Now, I would be remiss, but I'd have to bring you up to date on one more historical point. In 2010, 13 years ago, we sat in a meeting and we discussed what could we do to further our mission and help the community. And it was brought to their attention by one individual, a young lady, and she said, how about giving a Black History celebration? And thus, it took place. We all agreed that it was a great idea, but who was going to do it? And everyone pointed to the person who suggested it. That person is Audrey Hall, my wife, and she's sitting in the back of the room. So as much as I stand here and I get a lot of accolades and get publicized for doing great things, there's always, and they say this, behind every great man there's a greater woman, and that is my case, and it's also Glenn's case. But without Audrey and her vision, we would not be here today. She has truly been and is and will always be the wind beneath my wings. Thank you.
Ms. Dupree, would you like to say a few words and get us started with just actually viewing the exhibit for the students?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
I don't know how much time do I have, because I know you may have time constraints, or...
We're good on time.
Good on time.
If you're saying it, I want to hear it.
Oh, okay.
All right. Let's hear it, please.
Hello, everyone. I know I greeted some of you as you walked through the door. My name is Phyllis Dupree, and I moved to Colonia with my parents back in 1966. So I believe I was 8 years old at the time. And I attended School 17, which is right across the street, which is now the Evergreen or the YMCA. Loved growing up here. As a matter of fact, I met Marty Hall's wife, Audrey, when we were in 6th grade at School 17. I just want to say that part of this presentation is in memory and honor of my high school teacher from Colonia High. I graduated, I was class of 76. His name was Mr. Robert Peterson, as your principal just spoke about briefly. He was just, I just loved him. He was the teacher who comforted me, who believed in me, who developed my thirst for learning about history. I sat in class with someone by the name of John Gorka. He sat directly behind me, and the two of us would just be in awe of the granular detail that Mr. Peterson would have in teaching us. He never used a textbook. but any textbook that was used within our curriculum, he knew verbatim per page, he knew everything. At times, we would have to give presentations, and he would have this big clock behind us. And he said, okay, you have 5 minutes to give a presentation. And after 5 minutes, the clock would buzzer, and it was just the loudest buzzer. And we all would be deathly afraid of that clock. But we knew we had to be prepared when it came to giving our presentation. So I loved him so much that I even invited him to my, my wedding in subsequent years. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to attend, but he did send me a little note. And I just thought that that was so nice. And although I lost my yearbook, I still have that note. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try not to make it boring. Obviously, our history is kind of hurtful. It's still hurtful for me to read it. It's hurtful for me to verbalize it. And it's going to be hurtful even today to convey the messages that I have for you. But I think it's just so important for everyone to know about our history, and that, yes, it does have value, although some people seem to think that it doesn't. When you really look at it, I remember even Mr. Peterson telling us that in learning history, he would say, minorities learn history, and you also learn about your host group, which are non-minorities. But he says, it's a travesty if the host group doesn't learn about the minority. It's very important for you to know about all histories, because in knowing and learning and getting rid of the ignorance, you will be able to anticipate. You will be at an advantage, not a disadvantage. So I implore you to absorb as much as you can from what I'm about to speak about. And if you have any questions, I just ask for you to hold your questions until the end, so that hopefully I will be able to answer them. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a PhD level historian. I'm just somebody who just loves history and is pretty much a history buff. You know, I have a degree in history. I started my college in a historically black university in Richmond, Virginia. It was Virginia Union University, although Mr. Peterson wanted me to go to Howard University. I went to Virginia Union in Richmond, and then I transferred to the University of Hawaii, where I got a degree in history and a minor in economics back in 1982 at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in Honolulu. So with all that said, we're ready to start, I guess. Yes? Okay, thank you.